The story begins with the wind Hashira Sanemi and the serpent Hashira Obanai, accompanied by two demon slayers, stalking an abandoned castle. One of the demon slayers confirms a woman from a nearby village has been abducted, but they found nothing when they investigated the castle. Suddenly, Obanai spots a demon carrying the missing woman, and they go after him. The demon realizes he's being followed and blames himself for not killing the demon slayers before. The four enter the castle, but they don't realize it is crawling with numerous demons. The demons attack the demon slayers but are quickly handled down by Sanemi and Obanai, who eliminate them with their breathing techniques. The serpent Hashira Obanai says something is wrong, as he has never seen numerous demons in the same place before. They hear the woman cry for help and leap onto an upper floor while slaying all the demons on their way. They follow the kidnapper outside the castle and quickly get surrounded by more demons. The demons attack Sanemi, but he takes them out with his wind-breathing fourth form. The kidnapper realizes the demon slayer is strong and throws the woman off the roof, but she is quickly caught by Obanai. The Hashiras then chase the demon as he falls back into the castle, but when they leap inside, they instead see a vast, endless space of wooden halls and lamplit rooms, crawling with even more demons. Sanemi attempts to kill the kidnapper but only manages to stab the ground as the infinity castle vanishes. Obanai questions where the demons are, but Sanemi responds that he is as unsure as he is. Meanwhile, Kan now meets the poisonous Hashira Shinobu and informs her about her mission. Shinobu tells her about the attack on the swordsmith village and reveals that, due to the efforts of Muichiro, Mitsuri, Tanjiro, and Genya, 2 upper ranks have been killed. She explains that Nezuko has conquered the sun, and the big battle will soon be upon them, and Nezuko will be at the center of it. She says Muzan will now come for her so that he can conquer the sun too. She then asks Kan now to look after Nezuko as she is headed to Yubayashiki Mansion for the Hashira meeting, and Kan now happily agrees. On the other side, Tanjiro wakes up from his 2-week slumber and speaks with Goto. Goto tells him that all the swordsmiths have been relocated to the new place, and all of them are safe. Meanwhile, Sanemi and Obanai join the Hashira meeting. They apologize for their late arrival, but Himejima praises them for their mission. The meeting commences with the arrival of Kaguya's wife, Amane, and their children. Amane informs them that Kaguya's health has worsened to the point where he can never appear before them again. The Hashiras are shocked at the news but pray that Kaguya may find the strength to live on even a bit longer. She thanks them for those kind words and then addresses Mitsuri and Muichiro, revealing she heard from Demon Corps members that mysterious marks appeared on them during their battles and hoping they can explain how to induce them. She explains that during the Sengoku period, the demon slayers of the first breathing style, who nearly defeated Muzan, all bore a mark akin to demonic patterns. Sanemi says he has never heard of such marks and questions why they kept this secret from them, to which Amane says that the information is short and only one record exists about it, written in the personal notes of a demon slayer who used the first breathing style. The record explains that when the mark appears on one person, it will manifest to those around them in resonance. She says the first person to gain the mark in their generation was Tanjiro, but when asked how it appeared, he could not give a clear explanation. She hopes that Mitsuri and Muichiro can explain in detail. Mitsuri tries to give her explanation, but she's also a Tanjiro type. Muichiro then speaks up and reveals in his previous battle, he was poisoned and paralyzed, but seeing a boy about to be killed trying to save him, Muichiro regained his memories, and overwhelming rage overcame control of his emotions. He believes his heart rate exceeded 200 beats per minute, and his body temperature exceeded 39 degrees Celsius when the mark appeared on him. Amane is shocked at the revelation, but asks all Hashiras that their top priority is now to awaken these marks. After Amane has left, Tomioka decides to leave the meeting, but Sanemi orders him to stay as they must decide their next moves. Tomioka replies that it does not concern him, but Sanemi tries to grab his shoulder to stop him. However, Himejima silences them down by showing his overwhelming strength. The stone Hashira orders them all to sit and reveals he has a proposal for them. Meanwhile, Zenitsu arrives at the Butterfly Mansion. Kyo calls out to the others that Zenitsu has returned, and everyone commends him for completing his mission. Nezuko then appears behind the gate to greet him as well, causing Zenitsu to yell out in excitement at seeing her once again. However, Nezuko tells him, "Welcome back, Inosuke," causing Zenitsu to demand to know Inosuke's whereabouts in order to kill him. It is then revealed that Inosuke had been teaching Nezuko to say his name. Hotaru then appears in Tanjiro's room and gives him his new Nichiren sword. Tanjiro is amazed to see Rengoku's Tsuba installed on the blade and thanks him for that. Hotaru tells Tanjiro to see the blade, which he unsheathes to reveal its unique pattern. He says the steel is of high quality and believes its previous owner was likely a powerful swordsman. After Hotaru leaves, Genya, lying in bed nearby, asks if they could be quieter, but Inosuke bursts through the window of the ward. He tells them the joint strengthening training is about to start, and they all will be trained by the powerful Hashiras. At the Hashira meeting, Himejima believes they must begin the training in 3 days. He says time is against them, and they don't know when Muzan will launch a war on them. Thus, he wants them all ready. One by one, the Hashira voice their acknowledgement and agree with him. Obanai asks if they alone will be enough, to which Himejima proposes bringing the retired Hashira to help. Meanwhile, speaking with Tanjiro, Zenitsu lamented having to return to training despite just completing his recent mission. Tanjiro is excited about the idea, but Zenitsu disagrees, calling it horrible and hellish and believing whoever thought of it should die. He walks away in anger, but Tanjiro calls out to Zenitsu and thanks him for his advice about thunder breathing, as it helped him greatly in the battle against the Upper Moon 4. Those kind words lifted the mood, and Zenitsu left the room smiling brightly. Meanwhile, watching as several demon slayers struggle to run, Tengen Yuzui chastises them for their lack of fitness and demands they hasten themselves as if being attacked by a demon. Several of them soon collapse in exhaustion, but Tengen beats them down with a wooden sword while saying that the active Hashira's training will be harder. As the training begins, Tenjiro receives a letter from Kaguya and is shocked to learn that Hashira Tomioka is not participating in Hashira training. On the other side, while writing in her journals, Tameo hears something in her window. A Kasugai crow greets her and explains that he is the messenger of Kaguya Yubayashiki. Tameo questions how he found her, to which the crows answer that he had identified the house's previous owner, and examined how Yushiro's blood demon art worked. However, he reassures her that he has no intention to harm them. Tameo asks for his intentions, and the crow explains to Tameo that within the Demon Slayer Corps is a young woman who also possesses knowledge about demon physiology and pharmacology. He then invites her to join the Demon Corps to help examine Nezuko and defeat Muzan. Yushiro senses something and rushes to Tameo. He enters her room to see Tameo closing her window. She tells him that they will be moving out of the house and will go to the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters. Yushiro is shocked at the revelation, but when she tells him that this is their last chance to defeat Muzan, he agrees to go with her. Meanwhile, Tenjiro reads Kaguya's letter to him. Kaguya had wanted to speak to Tomioka but could not due to his health, and he asked if Tenjiro would speak to the water Hashira instead. Tenjiro, with a kind smile, agrees to fulfill Kaguya's wish and leaves the butterfly mansion. He arrives at Tomioka's residence and begins calling from the front door. Tomioka hears him from inside but believes he misheard. Suddenly, he hears the door open and is shocked to see Tenjiro peeking inside and looking for him. He tells him about Hashira training, and Tomioka says he is already aware of what is happening. Tenjiro tells him he can return to active service in a week and hopes he can train him, to which Tomioka says no. Tenjiro asks the reason, to which he answers that he is angry at him for not mastering water breathing. He says he wanted Tenjiro to become the water Hashira, as there is no one in the Demon Slayer Corps who holds the title. Tenjiro, surprised by his remark, asks what he's talking about, but Tomioka orders him to leave as he walks away. Remembering Kaguya's letter and how he had asked him to talk to Tomioka, Tenjiro vows to do whatever it takes. Not disheartened at this, Tenjiro proceeds to follow him for the next several days, asking him numerous insane questions, even as he is eating, meditating, bathing, or using the lavatory. Eventually, growing tired of his persistent following, Tomioka tells Tenjiro that he did not pass the final selection. He explains that during his year of entering the selection, there was a peach-haired boy named Sabito who lost his family to demons. They became friends since they both lost their families to demons. He says Sabito was a kind boy with a strong sense of justice, and he was the only one to die in final selection. Tomioka says he himself was injured by the first demon that attacked him, but before it could attack him again, Sabito suddenly appeared to rush in and behead it. Weak from the heavy blood loss, Tomioka nearly faints but is caught by Sabito to stop him from falling. However, he soon heard a cry for help, as an applicant was about to be eaten by a large demon. Sabito entrusted Tomioka to fellow trainees and ran to the source of the voice. Waking up a week later, he learned from the survivors that he passed the final selection. But Tomioka questions how he, someone who did not defeat a single demon and had to be rescued, could be considered someone to pass the selection. Tomioka tells Tenjiro he is not worthy of the title as the water Hashira and considers himself different from them. Furthermore, he does not see himself as deserving of a place in the Corps. He tells Tenjiro to seek out another Hashira to train with and that he is simply wasting his time being with him before walking away. Driven to tears by Tomioka's telling of his past, Tenjiro imagines that Tomioka wishes that he had died, a pain he is familiar with himself. To have someone one had deeply cared for die and the wish that they had lived instead of oneself, a pain like being ripped apart. He remembers when Sabito mysteriously trained him on Mount Sajiri, despite his death. He realizes that Sabito would be the same age as Tomioka had he lived and marvels at his lonesome feat of saving everyone on Mount Fujikase. Tenjiro believes had he lived, Sabito would have undoubtedly been an incredible swordsman, adding that it is likely another reason Tomioka believes he should have died instead. He had felt the same when Rengoku was killed, even thinking that he himself should have died in place of him, as he even believed Rengoku was capable of defeating Muzan someday. Yet, he knew the late flame Hashira believed in him. He attempts to find the words to encourage Tomioka, knowing that despite what he himself believes, Tomioka would have undoubtedly pushed himself and suffered on his path to becoming a Hashira. While he knows it is not his right to criticize him, he believes he must try to ask him about something. Walking to try and reach Tomioka, he lags behind him as he is on crutches while being ignored, but Tenjiro eventually asks Tomioka if he was going to pass on what Sabito had entrusted to him. His words stop the Hashira, causing him to touch his face and reminisce on a moment in his past. During their training, Sabito slapped him in the face, angered at him, saying that he should have died and warning him that if he repeats this again, it will be the end of their friendship. He reminds Tomioka that his older sister hid him from demons the day before her marriage, and she gave her life to save him. Sabito tells Tomioka not to die and protect the life she died for. Tomioka says the shock and pain of Sabito's slap are coming to him vividly, asking how he could forget the conversation with him. He recalls the names of his sister, Tsutako, and Sabito, apologizing to them for his immaturity. Seeing Tomioka is not speaking, Tenjiro begins to fear he has caused the already painful Tomioka even more harm. He suddenly has an idea of a speed-eating contest that, if he wins, he can use to encourage Tomioka to participate in Hashira training. Tomioka then turns to Tanjiro and apologizes to him. But before he can explain his willingness to train, Tanjiro asks if he would join him in a soba eating contest, much to his surprise and confusion. At a soba shop, as they eat, Jiyu notes that, regarding the program for Hashira training, he did not see Shinobu mention it, asking Tanjiro about what she is teaching the core, to which Tanjiro replies that he too is unaware, wondering how she is doing. Meanwhile, Kanao greets Shinobu and asks if she would train her after completing Sanemi's training, but the Hashira tells her she's not participating in training. Shocked at this, Kanao says she had wanted to do more training with her, causing Shinobu to smile at seeing her adoptive sister becoming more open and candid with her feelings. Shinobu believes now is the right time and tells Kanao about the demon who killed her older sister and explains how she is planning to kill him. In the mountains, as trainees perform sit-ups, Tengen says they cannot move on to the next training session without improving their basic fitness. He makes an example out of a trainee by hitting him in the stomach with his wooden blade, claiming that they will not survive Sanemi's and Mitsuri's training. Tenjiro then arrives and bows to the former Hashira. Tengen says he looks well, and with his body intact, he must now start training. Tenjiro thanks him, claiming it was because of him that he is alive, before vowing he will do his best in the training. Throughout the day, he repeatedly bests his fellow demon slayers in all exercises, running faster, lifting more, and having greater endurance out of them all, leaving them dumbfounded at his physical abilities. He also reunites with Tengen's wives, as Suma, Hinetsuru, and Makio greet him. Tenjiro thanks them for their help in the mission, but they claim they are the ones to be grateful. Later, one demon slayer asks his partner if he has night patrol the same night, asking to switch with him. His partner shoots down his idea, since night patrols allow him to skip morning training. That night, while on patrol, the first demon slayer believes the demons are hunting for Nezuko, though the other notes that it is mere speculation since no one asks demons. Suddenly, having had his back turned, the first demon slayer realizes his partner has vanished. He begins to panic as he worriedly looks around him, growing more nervous with each passing second. His partner suddenly jumps out from behind a corner, shocking the other demon slayer, who falls to the ground. Angered and scared, he demands he not joke around. His partner apologizes for his joke, but they hear a rustling sound behind them. The first demon slayer tells him to not repeat his prank and continue with the patrol, which he agrees to. Unbeknownst to them, the sound is coming from an eyeball marked 4, and it begins to follow them from behind. The next day, trainees are partnered up and must carry each other while running. Tenjiro, despite being partnered with someone much larger than himself, is able to easily run the fastest, leaving all the trainees stunned. During a break, they ask Tenjiro about what it was like to fight upper rank demons. Tenjiro says they are indeed strong, but when asked how much so, he replies that before he could realize it, he was downed and yet was immediately attacked upon getting back up. Before Tenjiro could tell them about when his brain didn't get oxygen, the trainees asked him to stop his retelling, before saying that these are the words that ordinary people like themselves cannot imagine. Before the next exercise, Tengen's wives approach Tenjiro. Hinetsuru and Suma says that, despite his rough behavior, Tengen is actually gentle on the inside, with Makio mentioning that he did not eat until the last trainee returned. Tengen, having heard their gossip, states that he would never crush the demon slayers entrusted to him by Kaguya. Tenjiro then makes his run, and Tengen tells him to do it quickly. As he does so, he says that the Hashira are actually kind-hearted deep down and recalls his eating contest with Tomioka. After eating more than 8 trays, Tomioka gives him 2 more trays and says that if he can finish his 2 portions, Tenjiro will win and he will participate in Hashira training. Hearing this, Tenjiro agrees and begins to eat his last portions. Sitting by himself, Sanemi waits until the Obanai arrives. He apologizes for his lateness, though the former notes he had only arrived as well. The Wind Hashira says he had been thinking about the castle they saw and how it suddenly vanished in front of their eyes. Sanemi also mentions that he had investigated the castle several times but did not find anything. Obanai says at the same time, demon activity in the surrounding city has diminished, which Sanemi believes is proof they are truly targeting Nezuko. Obanai believes that something dangerous will be upon them, but Sanemi shoots him down by saying he will be the one to end it all. Obanai then says he has a suggestion for him, to which Sanemi replies that he will say his one first. He challenges the serpent Hashira to fight him, and Obanai remarks that he had coincidentally been thinking the same. After helping Tengen's wives with chores in the kitchen, Tenjiro is thanked with a cup of Gyokuro tea. Hinetsuru begins to cry as she remarks that Tengen still wants to fight. Suma adds that he speaks in his sleep, and Makio notes that he blames himself for relinquishing his position in the core. Hinetsuru then asks Tenjiro to defeat Muzan, and he promises to do so. As the sun sets, Tengen informs the trainees of a change in plans. Instead of the long-distance run to the mountain, they will face a special exercise based on real combat. In the pitch black of the night, the trainees, all armed with wooden blades, must face and survive Tengen as he plays the role of a demon hunting them. For Tenjiro, his role in the session is to defeat the former Hashira. In the forest, despite all of them being together, the trainees are downed and knocked unconscious one at a time by Tengen, who is too fast to be seen by them. Tenjiro struggles to sense Tengen by scent, though he eventually catches sight of him in motion. Tengen continues to downplay the trainees until the moonlight reveals his position. When one trainee declares it is impossible for them to face him, the annoyed Tengen suddenly appears behind him, questioning if he would say the same to a demon attempting to kill him before knocking him out. Tenjiro warns the remaining trainees that Tengen will see through any half-hearted attack, telling them to group towards him and leave no openings. As the trainees run to him, Tengen attempts to attack again but has his blow blocked by Tenjiro. The force of their clash blows back the trainees, but Tenjiro holds his ground. The former Hashira orders him to attack, leading to an intense battle between them. The trainees are stunned by his ability to clash with Tengen, who himself is impressed by how much stronger Tenjiro has gotten. As the two continue to trade blows, Tengen faces the trainees again as they attempt to help Tenjiro. Though their attacks fall short, they succeed in surrounding him, much to Tenjiro's appreciation. Impressed by their efforts to get him, Tengen spins his blade as he remarks that the battle has gotten interesting as the trainees all converge on him to attack. After the training, Tengen chastises the trainees for being defeated by someone who has retired. One trainee then speaks up, exclaiming that battling a former Hashira was too much. Tengen responds that he is not training them to scare them, but before he can continue, the young man claims he now has hope that the Hashiras and Tenjiro can defeat Muzan. More trainees agree with his sentiment, with one stating that they will strive to do their best to support them. Inspired by Tenjiro and Tengen, the trainees vow to work harder and become stronger, leaving Tengen speechless but satisfied. The next day, watching the trainees exercise with renewed vigor, Tengen believes they will strengthen in their own way. Seeing as Tenjiro has nothing more to be taught, he allows him to depart. Tengen remarks that though they have defeated the upper ranks, the battle will not end until Muzan is defeated and leaves the job to Tenjiro. He then thanks Tengen and his wives for training him and leaves the area. Led by his Kasugai crow, Tenjiro makes his way to the next training site. Entering the building, he sees Muichiro facing a trainee, who pleads that he has endured enough. Muichiro coldly tells him he will be eaten if he does not fight back, before easily disarming and knocking him down. After completing his training with Tengen, Tenjiro walks into Muichiro's house and sees him sparring with a trainee. The trainee pleads that he has endured enough, but Muichiro coldly tells him he will be eaten by demons if he stops fighting. The trainee swings his wooden sword but is immediately knocked down by Muichiro. He addresses the other trainees and orders them to keep moving even when they are struck with a wooden sword. Suddenly, he notices Tenjiro at the entrance and warmly greets him. While they talk, Muichiro's Kasugai crow wastes no time insulting the trainees and wishing they were eaten by demons, much to their anger as they tried to shoo her away. Muichiro takes him to one of his rooms, where they are greeted by the swordsmith, Kozo Kanamori. Tenjiro is surprised to see him again, but he asks Kozo why he is here. Muichiro answers that it was he who asked him to come, before picking up his katana and asking Tenjiro to hold it. The demon slayer holds it out as asked, and Muichiro reveals the blade's cutting edge by throwing a paper airplane at it, causing it to split in half. As Tenjiro is amazed at the katana's sharpness, Muichiro explains that Kozo is staying permanently with him to keep his swords in opus condition for battle. Later that day, Muichiro orders his opponent to pick up his blade again. The trainee goes for an attack but gets struck down by Muichiro, leaving Tenjiro uneased. Muichiro chastises him for his emotional attack and states that one loss will lead him to his death in battle. Seeing that the trainee is not responding, Muichiro calls off training for the day and leaves. Outside, as the trainees cool themselves off, they wonder if Muichiro could at least soften the way he speaks. To this, Tenjiro reveals that his tone has softened compared to before, which they find unbelievable. They then notice Hashira leaving the building to go somewhere, which he was doing every night. At night, after the town quietens down and the lights go out, the area is stalked by hundreds of crawling eyes. The eyes are controlled by the Biwa demon of the Infinity Castle, and she uses her numerous eyes to track Muichiro as he is running into the night. Muichiro runs up to a shrine where Sanemi and Obanai are sparring with each other. Muichiro asks if he's allowed to join them. Sanemi instead asks about how his training has been. Muichiro responds that while training is enough for the other core members, it is not sufficient for him. Sanemi laughs at his remarks, and Obanai responds that he will honor his decision, as he and Sanemi will fight with him together. Muichiro jokingly remarks that 2 versus 1 is not fair, but nonetheless takes his position. With his missed breathing, he rushes past Obanai's attempt to strike, catching the serpent Hashira off guard, before he maneuvers around Sanemi to attack him. The wind Hashira bends back to evade his blade but narrowly misses his own slash at Muichiro, who then swings at him from the side. This leads to an intense battle between the 3 powerful Hashiras that envelopes the courtyard with dust clouds and debris. After the battle, Obanai asks Muichiro about how his training went, and he replies that Tenjiro had come to his place. He adds that while he is still healing, he'll be recovered upon reaching Obanai. Obanai gets mad at this revelation, but Sanemi claims Tenjiro is still no match for a Hashira. The next day, Muichiro looks at the trainees and believes that they don't have the intention to fight properly, so he orders real swords to be used for the next session. The trainee, now wielding one of Muichiro's highly sharpened blades, grows nervous as Hashira orders him to take a stance. Despite this, the trainee breaks down in tears and apologizes to Muichiro. Muichiro approaches him and states that choosing to not attack recklessly is progress, but the trainee says he doesn't have the ability to fight in a real battle. He adds that he knows Muichiro leaves for someplace each night and returns with bruises all over him, but he vows that he will work harder. Muichiro tells the trainees that he wants them to improve their skills, as he does not wish to see them killed in battle but to live long instead. Over the next 3 days, Tenjiro spars with Muichiro, and the powerful Hashira instructs the demon slayer to smooth his movements and muscles. Tenjiro performs what he is told as he parries and evades Muichiro's every attack. Eventually, Tenjiro avoids a direct slash at him and lands a powerful blow onto Muichiro's wooden blade. Muichiro remarks that the movements in his legs and hips transition perfectly, and he happily declares that he can move on to the next Hashira. Tenjiro is stunned to hear this, as he's only been with him for 5 days, but Muichiro says he's done everything he was told. Hearing this, the other trainees ask if they too can move on, but Muichiro's cheery attitude shifts back to his cold, telling them they will train their swings till their practice dummies break. Seeing his rude behavior towards the trainees, Tenjiro has an idea and asks Muichiro if they could have a paper airplane competition. Muichiro is surprised by the request, and Tenjiro mentions that he heard from someone that he likes paper planes. It is then revealed that Tenjiro had asked Kozo about Muichiro's hobbies, to which the smith answers that he loves making paper planes. Tenjiro then remarks that if he wins, Muichiro must be kinder to his trainees. The Hashira accepts the challenge, and the demon slayer claims he will not lose to him. Outside, Tenjiro hears Muichiro's challenge to him that he can win if his plane goes further even once out of 10 times, and Tenjiro accepts. On Kozo's signal, the two make their throw, but Muichiro's plane flies into the distance as Tenjiro's curves down, giving Hashira the win. Encouraged by the trainees, who want to be treated well, Tenjiro goes for the other round, but gets defeated by the powerful Hashira. With one last chance, Kozo encourages him not to give up, but Tenjiro's last throw results in a resounding defeat. Muichiro chides him for his confidence, but Tenjiro blames himself for not winning at least once. Suddenly, the trainee speaks up and challenges Muichiro for another paper airplane flying match. Muichiro happily accepts their challenge, and after they prepare their planes, he and Tenjiro make the first throw, which is quickly followed by a swarm of planes. They watch with satisfaction, and Muichiro looks back to see the trainees all smiling, prompting a smile of his own. At the end of the day, Tenjiro discusses with Muichiro the threat of Muzan targeting Nezuko for her sunlight immunity, adding that it has led to lessened demon activity. The Hashira believes that Muzan is gathering demons, and he will soon start a war on them. Tenjiro vows that he will train harder and become the strongest demon slayer who can defeat Muzan. Arriving at Mitsuri's mansion, Tenjiro is welcomed by Love Hashira. He bows to her in respect and says he is glad to see her doing well, and she answers that she too is happy to see him. She takes him inside and explains that she will treat him to black tea, butter, and pancakes. The confused Tenjiro wonders what butter and pancakes are. They sit at a table, and Tenjiro is presented with a stack of pancakes covered in butter and topped with a honeycomb. He is surprised to see how delicious they look, but he does not know how to eat them. Mitsuri slices into the stack and feeds him a piece, causing Tenjiro to state that the taste is to die for. She then tells him that after he's done eating, he must wear a pink uniform. Tenjiro immediately agrees and joins a group of other trainees. As Mitsuri's Kasugai Crow cranks a gramophone, the demon slayers dance to the rhythm of the music while twirling ribbons and following Hashira's lead. The trainees struggle to balance themselves, but Tenjiro is able to follow Mitsuri in each exercise successfully. She explains that a flexible body is key to having sharper movements. With each trainee in a pair and with their legs pushed against their partners, she commences their stretching regimen. When Tenjiro and a trainee struggle to pull each other apart to stretch themselves, Mitsuri steps in and asks that he step aside as she demonstrates the proper technique. She sits down and immediately pulls her legs apart, forcing the trainee into a painful split. As his screams fill the room, the horrified Tenjiro mutters that she is using brute force more than a stretching technique. She then asks Tenjiro to take his turn. He anxiously sits in front of her as she prepares to stretch him, causing the demon slayer to yell in pain and say that flexibility training is hellish. After completing Love Hashira's training, Tenjiro arrives at the residence of Obanai, who greets him and says he has been waiting for him. Tenjiro attempts to bow in front of him but gets silenced by the serpent Hashira, who threatens him with his life. The serpent Hashira informs him about Mitsuri, speaking of her experience with training him, adding that she seemingly had fun doing so. It is then revealed that Obanai was presented with a letter from her Kasugai Crow, which she received from Mitsuri. He reads as Mitsuri tells him she had tea with Tenjiro after training, mentioning that he looks so adorable whenever he eats something she has made, causing the serpent Hashira to seethe with anger. Obanai tells the demon slayer that he is not soft like Mitsuri, causing Tenjiro to realize that he hates him from the beginning. He then takes him to the training room and presents him with a training program he has specially designed for him. Tenjiro sees numerous trainees tied to posts all throughout Hashira's training hall. Obanai informs him that his objective is to swing his sword while dodging the obstacles to refine his swordsmanship. The demon slayer looks at the tied people and asks if the people tied up have committed any crimes. Obanai replies that they have committed the crimes of weakness, failing to learn, wasting his time, and annoying him, causing confused Tenjiro to question how he will go about with his task. Obanai gives him a single demonstration and tells him to watch carefully as he expertly slashes between the trainees to strike spring-loaded chimes. After that, Obanai takes a stance, and Tenjiro's mind is immediately filled with the internal thoughts of the tied trainees, all of whom are begging not to be hit. As a result, Tenjiro's swings are loppy, as he hesitates to swing his sword to avoid hitting the trainees. Obanai, enraged at this, challenges him to a sparring match inside the dojo. Tenjiro obliges, and as he attempts to swing, a trainee silently yells out, begging not to be hit, causing him to hesitate and leading Obanai to strike him in the ribs. He falls to the ground and Obanai orders him to get up and attack again. But Tenjiro says the most terrifying training ever just got started. Despite only using a bokudo, Tenjiro knows it would cause injuries, and his task is worsened by having to cross his way around the trainees to avoid Obanai. But he questions how the Hashira can attack in such a way. He continues to hear the inner voices of the trainees as he aims between them, only leading to the hesitation that Obanai uses to scold him. After the training, Tenjiro continues to strike the chimes as trainees ask why he is insisting on training after sparring with Obanai. Tenjiro explains that he wishes to make it less troublesome for them, and when they hear it, they appreciate his kindness and join him in practice. As the days pass, Tenjiro's training makes no progress, and he continues to be struck during his matches with Obanai, who criticizes him for his sluggishness in attacking. On the fourth day, Tenjiro runs to the left as Obanai mocks him for not attacking, and when he swings his sword, he misses, nearly hitting a trainee's head. Realizing he must focus on nothing else but facing Obanai, he imagines himself and Obanai within a dense forest. As the two begin training once more, Serpent Hashira quickly goes on the offensive, but Tenjiro is now able to react and block his attacks. With confidence in his skills and awareness, Tenjiro begins to attack his opponent with more accurate swings than ever and defend against his every move, resulting in landing a slash on Obanai's Haori, the sign that he has passed his training. After the training, Tenjiro bows to the Hashira and thanks him, but gets a stern warning to avoid interacting with Mitsuri again, causing the demon slayer to believe that he is hated even until the end. On his way to Sanemi's dojo, Tenjiro gets lost but gets startled by Zenitsu's sudden appearance. Zenitsu clutches onto his friend and pleads with him to help his escape, claiming it is a matter of life and death. Suddenly, Wind Hashira grabs Zenitsu by the head and demands that he choose between returning to training or facing his death. Zenitsu grabs onto Tenjiro and pleads for mercy, only to be chopped in the neck and knocked unconscious by Sanemi. He orders the demon slayer to carry him on his back, and Tenjiro obeys and apologizes to Zenitsu. On the way, Tenjiro is excited to train with the Wind Hashira, but Sanemi stops and tells the young demon slayer to not get cocky as he still hasn't accepted him. Tenjiro cheerfully replies that he doesn't mind, as he doesn't accept Sanemi either, recalling that he stabbed Nezuko with his katana in the past. It is then revealed that Sanemi's training involved multiple participants sparring against him, only allowing trainees to stop when they vomit blood or lose consciousness. Tenjiro says even Obanai gave him more breaks. He also explains that when Zenitsu regained consciousness, he furiously lashed out at Tenjiro as if he had murdered his parents. Later, Sanemi is especially hard on Tenjiro, resulting in Tenjiro's body becoming swollen and covered in bruises. Demoralized by his hellish first day, Tenjiro walks inside Sanemi's house and hears Genya's voice, calling for his brother's attention. He senses his scent and finds him with Sanemi. Genya pleads with him to listen, but Sanemi dismisses him, claiming he does not have a brother and threatening to kill him if he continues to follow him. Tenjiro sadly listens to his threat and notes that their confrontation is unlike how he fights with his siblings. Sanemi tells Genya not to act like they are close and downgrade him by revealing his lack of skill, ordering that he should quit the Demon Slayer course since he cannot call himself a swordsman without using breathing techniques. As Sanemi turns away, Genya tries to explain that he had always wanted to apologize to him, but Sanemi ignores it and walks on. Desperate not to lose his chance, Genya admits that he even ate demons to fight and reach where he is now, causing the Hashira to stop. The Wind Hashira angrily stomps down on his foot and frightens Genya with his rage. He suddenly vanishes in the air, causing Tenjiro to burst forth to reach him as Sanemi viciously attempts to gouge out his eyes. Tenjiro grabs Genya and pushes him away, but Genya gets a cut across his face from his fingers. The loud sound of Tenjiro and Genya landing outside startles Zenitsu and the other trainees. Believing that Sanemi has returned, Zenitsu and the trainees pretend to faint and lie down. Suddenly, he sees Tenjiro and questions what he is doing. As Tenjiro looks in the house and pleads with Sanemi to stop, Zenitsu grows frightened at a loud and ominous sound filling the air as the enraged Wind Hashira steps out to confront the Demon Slayer. Tenjiro demands to know if Sanemi intended to kill Genya, to which he replies that he did not. Instead, he plans to injure him beyond the point of recovery, although he would forgive him if he leaves the core immediately. Tenjiro rejects his authority, telling Sanemi that he has no right to make decisions for Genya, especially after disowning him as his brother just moments earlier. He explains that he chose to risk his life battling demons whether he had the talent to do so or not, revealing that, without Genya, they wouldn't have defeated an upper rank without him, and he will not let the Hashira harm him. Hearing this, Sanemi decides to cripple the demon slayer first and takes a fighting stance. With his tremendous speed, he lunges forward and punches Tenjiro in the chest, lifting him up and shocking Genya and Zenitsu. To his surprise, he finds the demon slayer has stopped his fist from actually hitting him, before Tenjiro kicks him in the head into letting go. Tenjiro orders Zenitsu to take Genya away from the scene. Sanemi attempts to kick him in the head and narrowly misses, but his foot cuts across Tenjiro's ear. As Genya tries to dissuade his brother from further violence, Zenitsu pulls him away from the scene, much to his annoyance. Zenitsu remarks that it's best to separate two arguing individuals as they flee, then adds that he pities Genya for having a total lunatic as an older brother. Genya does not take kindly to the insult and punches Zenitsu in the face. Despite the trainees attempting to restrain Sanemi from hurting Tenjiro further, their brawl lasts until sundown. Afterwards, Tenjiro was scolded by the Corps for his actions. His training with Sanemi was suspended, and he was barred from approaching him. The next day, as Tenjiro and Zenitsu head to the mountainous location of the stone Hashira's house, they hear something in the distance, and lead Tenero to demoralized by his hellish first day. Tenjiro walks inside Sanemi's house and hears Genya's voice, calling for his brother's attention. He senses his scent and finds him with Sanemi. Genya pleads with him to listen, but Sanemi dismisses him, claiming he does not have a brother and threatening to kill him if he continues to follow him. Tenjiro sadly listens to his threat and notes that their confrontation is unlike how he fights with his siblings. Sanemi tells Genya not to act like they are close and downgrade him by revealing his lack of skill, ordering that he should quit the Demon Slayer Corps since he cannot call himself a swordsman without using breathing techniques. As Sanemi turns away, Genya tries to explain that he had always wanted to apologize to him, but Sanemi ignores it and walks on. Desperate not to lose his chance, Genya admits that he even ate demons to fight and reach where he is now, causing the Hashira to stop. The wind Hashira angrily stomps down on his foot and frightens Genya with his rage. He suddenly vanishes in the air, causing Tenjiro to burst forth to reach him as Sanemi viciously attempts to gouge out his eyes. Tenjiro grabs Genya and pushes him away, but Genya gets a cut across his face from his fingers. The loud sound of Tenjiro and Genya landing outside startles Zenitsu and the other trainees. Believing that Sanemi has returned, Zenitsu and the trainees pretend to faint and lie down. Suddenly, he sees Tenjiro and questions what he is doing. As Tenjiro looks in the house and pleads with Sanemi to stop, Zenitsu grows frightened at a loud and ominous sound filling the air as the enraged wind Hashira steps out to confront the demon slayer. Tenjiro demands to know if Sanemi intended to kill Genya, to which he replies that he did not. Instead, he plans to injure him beyond the point of recovery, although he would forgive him if he leaves the Corps immediately. Tenjiro rejects his authority, telling Sanemi that he has no right to make decisions for Genya, especially after disowning him as his brother just moments earlier. He explains that he chose to risk his life battling demons whether he had the talent to do so or not, revealing that, without Genya, they wouldn't have defeated an upper rank without him, and he will not let the Hashira harm him. Hearing this, Sanemi decides to cripple the demon slayer first and takes a fighting stance. With his tremendous speed, he lunges forward and punches Tenjiro in the chest, lifting him up and shocking Genya and Zenitsu. To his surprise, he finds the demon slayer has stopped his fist from actually hitting him, before Tenjiro kicks him in the head into letting go. Tenjiro orders Zenitsu to take Genya away from the scene. Sanemi attempts to kick him in the head and narrowly misses, but his foot cuts across Tenjiro's ear. As Genya tries to dissuade his brother from further violence, Zenitsu pulls him away from the scene, much to his annoyance. Zenitsu remarks that it's best to separate two arguing individuals as they flee, then adds that he pities Genya for having a total lunatic as an older brother. Genya does not take kindly to the insult and punches Zenitsu in the face. Despite the trainees attempting to restrain Sanemi from hurting Tenjiro further, their brawl lasts until sundown. Afterwards, Tenjiro was scolded by the Corps for his actions. His training with Sanemi was suspended, and he was barred from approaching him. The next day, as Tenjiro and Zenitsu head to the mountainous location of the stone Hashira's house, they hear something in the distance, and lead Tenero to a waterfall in a clearing. There, they see trainees, including Inosuke, chanting the Nambutsu as they attempt to keep standing beneath the pressing torrent. The two are shocked by the scene when they hear a voice behind them who tells them that extinguishing the heart and mind can make even fires cool. Tenjiro and Zenitsu are shocked to see the stone Hashira, Jaiomai Himejima, bearing heavy logs and rocks while atop fiery ground, welcoming them to his training grounds. At the training grounds, Zenitsu and Tenjiro listen as Himejima highlights the importance of their lower bodies. He explains that by providing themselves with a firm foundation, their attack accuracy and defense will increase. He says his training has 3 tasks, including immersing themselves in the waterfall, lifting a set of 3 large logs tied together, and pushing a boulder for 1 cho. As Himejima explains all his tasks, Tenjiro interrupts to inform Himejima that Zenitsu has fainted, to which he is instructed to throw him in the river. Upon being placed in the water, Zenitsu immediately goes back to the dry land, saying that his internal organs are in agony, as he believes he will freeze to death. He then senses something behind him and sees Murata, who tells him to cling to the boulders for warmth. Zenitsu instantly lunges towards one and is greeted by its heat. He remarks that he had never imagined they could be so warm, claiming it feels like being in his mother's arms. Tenjiro notices Inosuke beneath the waterfall, continually chanting coming through as he endures the torrent. Soon, he notices Inosuke is not speaking anymore, realizing something is wrong and pulls him onto dry land. As Tenjiro makes his first attempt, he strains to keep his body steady as the torrent pushes down on him. Murata instructs Tenjiro to chant the Nenbutsu, both to concentrate and to signal that he is conscious. Tenjiro puts his hands together and begins to chant Nenbutsu as he endures the waterfall. His effort soon runs out as he reaches his tolerance for the cold. At the boulders, he tells Murata that if he had relaxed his body for a second, his neck might break from the weight of the water. During a break, Tenjiro grills fish for the trainees. Inosuke gobbles his food as he remarks on his amazement at the old guy with the rattling beads. As Tenjiro chides him for the nickname he has given Himejima, Inosuke claims he felt chills upon first meeting him. Inosuke believes without any doubt that Himejima is the strongest in the Demon Slayer Corps, and Tenjiro adds that his scent is different from the other Hashira as well. Zenitsu angrily chimes in that Himejima cannot possibly move a boulder 1 cho, and that he simply enjoys tormenting them. When Tenjiro mentions hearing that the stone Hashira could move even bigger boulders, Zenitsu mocks him for believing everything he hears. To this, Tenjiro remarks that, given his excellent hearing, he can tell if he is lying. Himejima himself then appears behind the group at that moment, pushing an immense boulder while chanting the Nyanfo, leaving Zenitsu and the trainees speechless in awe and disbelief. When Tenjiro asks if he could be like Himejima, Zenitsu repeatedly punches him for his optimism amidst the hellish training, claiming there is a gap between giants and little people. Later, during the waterfall training, Tenjiro and Zenitsu work hard chanting the Nenbutsu and Nyanfo to maintain their stance, though Zenitsu loses his footing and is pulled downstream. After the completion of the first task, Tenjiro moves onto the logs. Despite the struggle to lift them over him, he is able to successfully lift the set above his head. Within the nearby town, the Biwa demon's eyes continue to stalk the townsfolk into the night, until she spots a demon slayer. She informs Muzan that she has located 60% of the demon slayers, but has yet to locate Nezuko. Muzan is delighted to see her grow beyond what he had imagined, and he instructs her to look in a new location. In Tenjiro's first attempt at pushing the boulder, despite using all his might, it does not move, and his efforts only result in his sandal breaking. While walking back to fix it, he comes across several trainees preparing to leave the mountain. They inform him that their early departure is because they cannot keep up with the training. The 3 tell Tenjiro they are counting on his efforts, and the demon slayer bows in acknowledgement, remarking that he is counting on them as well. Confused to hear his assurance, Tenjiro explains that if they can support the strong fighters, they can fight the demons without distractions, and with everyone's effort, they can sever the head of Muzan. This encourages them and they depart with pride, telling Tenjiro to leave the supporting roles to them. That day, during an afternoon break, trainees are impressed by Tenjiro's skill at making onigiri. Murata states he realizes why the Hashira do not have many tsugukos. The trainees all agree it is either because training is too harsh and everyone is frightened, or in Zenitsu's case, they grow dejected at the gap between them and the Hashira. As an extra treat, he prepares miso-flavored onigiri for the trainees, causing them to happily recall memories of their own mother's cooking. Tenjiro himself smiles at seeing their joy, reminded of times he had cooked for his family. Now on his 6th day of training, Tenjiro once again exhausts himself without nudging the boulder. Genya then appears and asks if his mark is darker, leaving Tenjiro surprised as he could not contact him after the incident. Genya apologizes for the fight and thanks Tenjiro for defending him. Regarding his mark, Genya tells him it has gotten darker, which Tenjiro was unaware of since the trainees are always seeing him, and he is delighted to know his training is paying off. Genya then asks if he is using repetitive action, but Tenjiro's confused expression demonstrates he does not. He reveals he had learned the technique through watching Himejima and explains that repetitive action involves heightening concentration with a predetermined action. In his case, he recites the Nenbutsu. Tenjiro realizes Himejima does the same, and Genya jokingly mimics his habit of saying Namu, Namu. As Genya departs after giving his advice, Tenjiro tells him he will attempt to use repetitive action. Placing his hands on the boulder and taking his stance, Tenjiro takes several deep breaths as he remembers Genya's statement. As he begins to push on the boulder, it is able to nudge slightly, before he is interrupted by his peers asking him to make dinner. That evening, Genya joins the trainees and helps Tenjiro with cooking dinner. While preparing vegetables, he asks about his attempt at repetitive action. Tenjiro claims it feels different from total concentration, which Genya explains is due to the technique stirring his emotions. He wonders if his mark only appears when he is in a similar state, though Tenjiro disagrees given that both he and Himejima have not manifested theirs. The next day, Tenjiro makes his latest attempt at using repetitive action. He first thinks about the faces of his loved ones, his family, and the last words of Rengoku. An inner fire suddenly awakens inside him, and his mark manifests. He then pushes hard against the boulder, and his increased strength causes it to inch forward. However, he quickly grows tired and loses concentration, causing his mark to disappear as a result. Tenjiro then takes a deep breath and begins to push again, continually recalling his memories to concentrate and exerting himself to give all of his strength. Tenjiro is able to sustain the mark and begins to push the boulder forward, shocking his friends. Zenitsu yells out in amazement at his accomplishment as Inosuke curses him for pushing it before he could. With the mark strengthening him, Tenjiro continues to push the boulder without slowing down. Meanwhile, Zenitsu's Kasugai sparrow flies through a dimly lit forest, carrying a piece of rolled up paper with his legs. Tenjiro finally manages to push a boulder slightly further using the technique that Genya taught him, much to the shock of Zenitsu and Inosuke. After pausing for a brief moment, he becomes more motivated to push it further with all his might. Inosuke, inspired by the sight, manically chants tempera before he successfully pushes his boulder. This leaves Zenitsu hiding behind a tree, who inwardly cries and remarks that everyone has pushed their boulder, and he is the only one left behind. However, the chirps of his sparrow grabbed his attention, and he noticed the bird by his feet. He at first dismisses the sparrow and reveals that he can't leave until he pushes his boulder, causing the sparrow to harshly attack him on his foot. Although at first he gets angry, but then notices the paper his sparrow brought and recognizes it as a letter for him. Meanwhile, Tenjiro successfully pushes the boulder to one Cho. However, the task leaves him exhausted as he realizes that he's completely dehydrated. Fearing that he'll die, he cries and weakly calls out for Zenitsu, Inosuke, or Murata to help him out. As he hallucinates and sees them, Himejima suddenly appears, pours water into his mouth, and prays for his well-being. He announces that Tenjiro's boulder training drill is complete and compliments him for his efforts in the events that happened at the Swordsmith village. He acknowledges him for his hard decision to put the lives of the villagers before his own sister and says he should be proud of himself. Tenjiro corrects his remarks by saying that it was Nezuko who made the decision, believing he doesn't deserve any praise. Tenjiro then thanks him for saving his life and giving him the water, to which Himejima replies that no matter what anyone says about him, he acknowledges him with his heart. Tenjiro questions his choice to acknowledge him, to which Himejima mentions his past as a teacher taking care of orphans in a temple before he joined the Demon Slayer Corps. He tells him that he shared a good time with orphans and lived a happy family life despite not being related by blood. Himejima also explained that he would prefer to live the same life forever with the orphans until he reveals that one of the children was a traitor. He mentioned that the kid broke the law he set up and encountered a demon when traveling outside after nightfall. In order to save himself, the traitor orphan offered all the other orphans sleeping in the temple as sacrifices to the demon in exchange for his own life. At night, the same orphan kid quietly destroyed the wisteria incense surrounding the temple before the demon came and immediately slaughtered 4 of the 8 children. Himejima woke up to realize his responsibility to defend the remaining children. He told them to get behind him as he would use all his strength to save their lives, but the 3 orphans didn't listen and were immediately killed by the demon, leaving Seo as the only orphan listening to his instructions. He felt enraged at his failure to protect the children he cared about and repeatedly punched the demon until daybreak came. The next day, the villagers came to speak to Seo and ask her about the incident. She struggled to describe the incident to them. However, when she opened her mouth, Himejima was left heartbroken as she told everyone that he was the one who killed all the orphans, which caused the villagers to put him in prison. Himejima cried with heartbreak in his state of imprisonment, wishing Seo to at least be thankful and grateful for his actions in fighting and protecting her. After sharing his past, he also mentions that he would have been sentenced to execution if it weren't for Kaguya's kind actions in intervening. He then tells Tenjiro that he found other people and Hashira hard to trust when he joined the Demon Slayer Corps, until Tenjiro showed his true potential. He promises to help Tenjiro in the foreseeable future, and Tenjiro also promises to continue his efforts to try his best. Himejima then pats him on the head, causing Tenjiro to shed tears of joy as he announces that he has completed his training. Later that day, Tenjiro, Inosuke, and Genya eat together. Genya mentions that Himejima wouldn't let him be at Suguko due to a lack of talent but allowed him to become his apprentice after learning that he ate demons. Genya reveals that Himejima also introduced him to Shinobu, the poison Hashira, and when she checked his physical condition, she scolded him upon every visit. At that moment, Inosuke tried to steal Zenitsu's fish before Tenjiro interrupted, informing him to wait for Zenitsu to return from training to eat his fish. Tenjiro then reveals he will soon depart for Tomioka's mansion, asking if Genya would come along, to which he remarks that he can't go with him as he has yet to complete his boulder training. Suddenly, Inosuke laughs and insults him upon hearing he can't use breathing styles, resulting in both throwing consecutive punches at each other as Tenjiro tries to calm them down. The next day, Tenjiro heads outside and finds Zenitsu still attempting to push his own boulder. He was worried about him and his silence over the past few days and asked if he would soon eat. Zenitsu responds with his back turned on him, telling Tenjiro to do his best in the next training. When Tenjiro asks if he will be alright, Zenitsu replies with a serious look that his strength training is something he must prioritize himself, and he vows to become stronger. As Tenjiro departs for Tomioka's training, he thinks about his sister Nezuko, and how she must be feeling lonely without being in the care of her dear brother Tenjiro. He hopes that she is safe in the care of Sakonji until he is interrupted by the voices of blades striking each other. He rushed towards the voice, only to find Tomioka and Sanemi battling with each other. Sanemi and Tomioka continuously use their respective breathing techniques, with Sanemi using his wind breathing to attack, and Tomioka using his water breathing to counter it. Tenjiro is in awe of their immense strength but gets shocked when both of them break their swords, with Sanemi mentioning fighting barehanded until they kill each other. Horrified at the remarks of Sanemi, Tenjiro intervenes in their battle and tells them to stop. Sanemi angrily interrupts, mentioning that he was supposed to be forbidden to interact with him, but Tenjiro cheekingly remarks that he knows Sanemi likes red bean matcha, assuming that this would be the potential cause of their battle. After hearing Tenjiro's words, Tomioka asks Sanemi if he likes that food. Tenjiro brags about the food and how tasteful it is, causing Sanemi to punch Tenjiro upward, knocking him unconscious for a short period of time before leaving with an angry look. When Tenjiro awakens, Tomioka explains that the fight was intentional and part of the Hashira training, as they have to battle with each other to test their strength. Jiyu also remarks that, through Sanemi's anger, he had figured out what his favorite food really was and came up with the idea to give him some red bean matcha to apologize next time when they meet. Meanwhile, as Sanemi walks down a flight of stairs, he mentions how Obanai and Muichiro are out on training at nightfall, determined to join them again and defeat them in a spar. However, his thought was interrupted by the words of Tenjiro, who envied him for being so carefree and blamed him for being the reason for his departure from the abode. Sanemi suddenly stops in his tracks and senses something. He snatches one of Biwa Demon's eyeballs and crushes it. As he witnesses the eye disintegrate, Sanemi realizes that demons have infiltrated the core. Meanwhile, at the Yubayashiki mansion, Kagura receives comfort from Amain as he lays with his further worsened state but immediately recognizes an unfamiliar presence. He also senses the entrance gates opening for an infiltrator slowly approaching far away in the direction whilst remaining in his bad condition. Kagura glares over to the open doors in the direction of someone drawing near despite having bandages over his eyes and decayed skin, hearing the mysterious figure's footsteps proceeding to grow closer. The clear aura begins to disperse from the ominous shadow as he stops in his tracks at the back entrance of the estate, revealing the familiar visitor confronting him to be Muzan, standing before Kagura, whom he greets appearance. With the demon his family and the demon slayer corps have spent the last 1,000 years hunting now before him, he asks Amain to describe his appearance. She informs him that Muzan appears as a man in his early to late 20s, but that his eyes are a light pink and his pupils are cat-like vertical slits. Kagura is amazed at the description and mentions knowing that he would appear soon, believing Muzan must be furious at the Yubayashikis, enough to eventually confront him. Muzan responds with his disappointment in Kagura, seeing the head of the family that has thwarted him for so long in a deplorable state. He places emphasis on his unsightly looks and his corpse-like scent. As he attempts to sit up, coughing blood in the process, Kagura acknowledges his state and explains that 6 months ago, his doctor had given him only a few days left to live. Yet he has continued to survive. Even his doctor is at a loss for words, and it is all because of his sole, unwavering desire to defeat him. In response, Muzan tells him his fleeting dream will end years ago. Muzan disregards this and asks about its importance, and the core leader explains that his family was cursed for giving birth to a monster like him. Children born to the Yubayashiki family would die soon after birth, and as the clan faced extinction, a priest advised them that because a demon was born out of their blood early, it still remains that no one in his clan has lived past the age of 30. Unimpressed, Muzan mocks his family's history as nonsense that makes him want to gag, wondering if his illness has reached his brain. He claims he has never faced divine retribution for his killing of thousands of humans and that, throughout his long life, he has never seen the gods or Buddha intervene. To this end, Kagura acknowledges the demon's way of perceiving things but adds that he too has his own way of thinking before asking Muzan about what he has been dreaming of for the last 1,000 years. The demon doesn't respond and instead notes the odd feeling he is experiencing. Despite now confronting the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, an eyesore and nuisance to him, he does not feel any hatred for him. To his right, he observes as Kaguya's two daughters, Nishika and Hinaki, continue to act almost blissfully unaware of his presence, playing with a Kamafusen and singing to each other. He experiences an odd sense of familiarity and relief disgusting him, and he looks around to realize only 4 humans are present, and to atone for her sins, she will die with him before calling out for Himejima's assistance. Unable to move, Muzan can only hear as a whirring sound rings through the air. The stone Hashira manifests onto the battlefield, hidden by concealment talismans and angered by Kaguya's death, winding his flail for an attack. He lets go and pulls his chain taut, sending the massive spiked weight hurtling towards the demon, pulverizing his head completely. Himejima remembers first meeting Kaguya when the Kaguya was 14 and he was 18. He was surprised that someone of his demeanor was 4 years younger than him. Kaguya acknowledges that he fought for the sake of others and assures the monk that he was not a murderer. Touched by his acknowledgement of his innocence, Himejima fell to his knees in tears as Kaguya comforted him, recalling that he would always say what someone yearned, asking Himejima to use him as bait for a chance to behead him. When asked about his certainty, the Kaguya simply replied that it was his intuition. Himejima remembers that, along with his soothing voice, Kaguya possessed the Yubayashiki clan's extraordinary intuition, known as foresight. Able to see into the future, the clan used the ability to amass great fortune and avoid numerous crises. Knowing that the others will not agree with his plan, he can only ask Himejima to carry out this final instruction. Reluctant but understanding, Himejima acknowledges his wish and the thank Fameo's aid. His reserves of power still remain. As he resolves to keep the demon restrained, Muzan attacks the stone Hashira with black blood brambles, manipulating his blood into an array of long, barbed tendrils. Himejima defends himself with stone breathing, third form, stone skin, wielding his chained flail and acts in a rapid flurry of attacks to fend off the Inkai mansion. He sees Muzan fighting Himejima and demands to know what has happened to Kaguya. Shinobu and Muichiro soon appear, followed by Mitsuri and Obanai, both asking Kaguya for his status. Tomioka then arrives shortly after and is shocked into silence by what he sees. As the Hashira look at the devastation before them, Himejima praises Kaguya's strategy to unite the Hashira. Tenjiro soon appears to join everyone and is shocked to see Muzan, while he himself is surprised to notice the familiar demon slayer is amongst his opponents. Himejima calls out to all of them, announcing that they are now facing Muzan Kibutsuji himself and emphasizing that he will not die even when reattaches it to his belt. He falls with an air of readiness and silent fury as he uncharacteristically opens his eyes. Shinobu falls by herself and grows nervous at her surroundings. Obanai and Mitsuri plummet together. Sanemi is angered by his predicament, and Muichiro is trailed by Himejima as they fall in close proximity to each other. Tomioka calls to Tenjiro above him, and he breaks his fall by rolling safely onto a floating platform. Tenjiro faces Muzan in the castle as he mocks them for believing they had him cornered. He will not get away now. Muzan goads the demon slayer to follow through with his threat as numerous doors manifest to cut him off from everyone. And as he plummets, Tenjiro angrily swears to defeat him. Like and comment if you enjoy this video. Subscribe to my channel for more anime recaps, and tell me what anime recap you like to see next.